Administrator for the City of Duluth from 2018 to 2024, and the Director of Regulatory Services for the City of Minneapolis from 2015 to 2018. Noah holds a master's degree in public administration from Hamline University and a bachelor's degree in political science from Marquette University. He is a credentialed manager and member of the International City County Management Association, the ICMA, and serves on the board of directors of the Minnesota City County Management Association. He is here today to talk about what have been his priorities as city manager and what he sees as some of Golden Valley's advantages and challenges ahead. So will you please come on, Golden Valley Rotary. Welcome.
Hit the tab in the very top left.
There it is.
Thank you.
Did that?
That's great.
All right. Welcome. Glad you're here.
Thank you. Is it okay if I hold this so I can pace a little bit? Excuse me. Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the warm welcome. I was looking at this the wall of flags here while I was eating, and I see the one from LaGrange, Illinois, which is where my grandparents lived when I was growing up, and so it's fun to see that right over here while I'm talking. Thank you for the generous introduction, and you took away about one of my slides, I think, here, which is okay. So the agenda, which is based on the questions that I was sent, is here, which I just wanted to talk through. What do I do as city manager? What is my vision and how are we going to achieve it? And then what areas of improvement there might be. And then I'm very happy to answer questions. And I'm happy that Representative Freiberg's here as well, because we've had a similar conversation about a couple of the items that we'll talk about, and so it's great to have that opportunity here as well. So I did put in a slide just a little bit about myself, which was very ably covered, so thank you for that. I'm really excited to be here in Golden Valley and to be part of the community. I grew up in South Minneapolis by Powderhorn Park, and up until we moved to Duluth so that I could do that job, we lived in Southwest Minneapolis, and so I was telling a few of you that my son is a senior in high school right now, and so we're waiting for him to finish up, and then we'll be moving in the summer, and I frankly am very excited to come home to the metro and get to see my family more regularly and just get to be back home. Duluth has been a wonderful place for us, but I'm excited to be back in the metro and very excited about this opportunity with this community, and have had a great start so far. Excuse me. So what does a city manager do? It sounds like it is one of those jobs where a lot of it is right there in the name, and I try to pay attention to that, but in general, I oversee the daily operations of the city. I work constantly and regularly with the mayor and the city council. I take the budget and our kind of long range planning really seriously. It's something that the city frankly has been lacking, that long range strategic planning, and so we've kicked that work off. I do things like this, talk to residents, talk to elected officials and city staff, community groups, work on effective communication, transparency, and then manage staff. And all that sounds pretty obvious, I think, and also one of the things that I really pay attention to is the scope of work that I'll have in any given day. So I could have a day where I'm talking about a new patch that our firefighters have, talking about some golf course operational item, worrying about an infrastructure project, talking to Representative Freiberg about something that we're working on with the state. And that scope of work and the breadth of it is part of why I find the job interesting and exciting, is that no 2 days are the same. And unfortunately, rarely is it a boring job. There are many days where I wish it was a little more boring, and that's just not how that goes. So vision for the city. I think that it's very clear that this is a community that has some decisions to make about what it wants to be. And I don't mean that with any judgment or any that there's a wrong answer, frankly, but it is very clear that there's opportunities for Golden Valley to decide what the future looks like. And mostly that is about what type of change we want to plan for over the next few years. And so we talk about strategic development and strategic redevelopment. And what that to me means is looking at places where it's a built city, so we don't have a big green field we can just plop anything into. But when there is an opportunity to take something that is existing and make it different or new, we want to do that in a thoughtful way so that the community maintains its essential character, but that we also get to benefit from expansion of the tax base. Because Golden Valley is, and Representative Freiberg, having been on the city council, I think is aware of this and has heard about it from us for years, but we pay into fiscal disparities, meaning that we give away to other communities money that helps their operations, and we do not receive local government aid, which means that we are funded almost entirely by property taxes, and that is something that means that we have to be really thoughtful about the way that we work. And every community, whether they get fiscal disparities or local government aid, is very careful about how they budget and work. But it means that we really track that the most effective way to care for the tax burden that residents have is to pay attention to that. And the most effective way to help reduce that over the long term is to expand that tax base a little bit, meaning bring in other entities that pay more taxes that then take some of the burden off of people that are already paying taxes. One of the ways that we can do that is by continuing to develop housing for all community members. We do not have a humongous number of housing opportunities for folks who want to stay in the community but might be aging out of their homes. And we then struggle with finding places for young families because sometimes those houses need to be freed up. And so one of the things we're talking about internally is looking for opportunities to do housing that will allow for community members to stay in their community, but also maybe if you don't need your house anymore, that you would sell that and move into a condo or something like that. Obviously, everyone's going to make the right decision for them, and the city doesn't get to make that decision, but we want to provide people with opportunities, and we want to provide opportunities for all community members. We've also talked a great deal about finding a way to give the city more of an identity. And that doesn't mean that we become a tourist hub. It doesn't mean that we change the essential character, but maybe we rebrand a little bit and update the way that the city looks. We have a downtown that doesn't have a great deal of anchor to it. And so we have an opportunity to provide that. And one of the things that we really have noticed is that we have community members that come home here at night or are here during the day. We have a lot of people that come to Golden Valley for work every day. And we're very fortunate to have Fortune 500 companies here. But we need to also look for reasons to help people stay and give somebody a reason to go to have new restaurant options or additional restaurant options that keep them here and keep them here after work, so that we're continuing to capture that. We have, as a city, some long-standing infrastructure issues, and that is largely with city buildings. That is something that is pretty universal across the state. A lot of cities did new buildings in the 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s, and those buildings are aging out of their useful life. And so we have plans that we're working through to build a new fire station on the east side of the city. We're working towards a new public works facility that will hold all of our public works staff rather than 3 separate buildings. And then a public safety facility as well. And then we've also been paying attention to the fact that City Hall was originally built in the 60s, it was remodeled in the 90s. And even if you just look at that exact cadence, we are due for either a significant remodel or replacement, and we need to figure out if and how we can do that. In part because we're running out of space as well, and the building just does not serve our needs. And so we're paying attention to those things. My main goal, and one of the things that I think we do very well right now, is to deliver efficient and effective services. That's something that I'm coming from my last job in a city that struggles with snow, Duluth has not enough plow drivers, not enough plows, and way too many streets. And so it was a constant struggle, and I've been deeply impressed with the speed that our staff get out and clear snow, the fact that the sidewalks are taken care of. We are very lucky, and that is a really exciting thing to be a part of. I know there's always, any snowfall, there's gonna be somebody who's frustrated with how quickly that clearing happens, but I will just share my perspective that it is happening quickly, effectively, and they do a great job. There's the concept of 8 to 80, which I have written on here, which is that part of what you do as a city is think about ways that you can cater and design a city to serve somebody who's 8 and somebody who's 80. And the idea being that largely captures most of the folks who would be operating independently, and then you add in people on both sides of that, but the goal would be that it is a usable city and that walkable city, and that everyone, from whether they be 8 or 80, has easy access and opportunity to use city services, use community services, and access commercial businesses, retail and restaurants and things like that. I talked a little bit about the budget earlier. I'm not going to read every one of these things to you, but one of the other ones that I want to just flag is that I walked into an organization where some of the staff were struggling a little bit, and so we've spent a lot of time over the past 11 months since I started as the interim working to address that, working to pay attention to the culture in the organization to make sure that people feel appreciated and feel valued. It is far more effective, it's far cheaper for us to keep good staff than to constantly replace them. And we have an opportunity there to help retain our staff. So we've been working really hard at that, and I think we're making great progress. I'm really proud of the work that's happened so far. And there's more to come, but I don't want to work someplace where people are unhappy. I don't want to be unhappy at work, and so I want to extend that same courtesy to all of our staff, that they should feel happy and proud to work where they do. And so that's something we've spent a lot of time on. And I've really appreciated that, frankly, the city council, mayor and the city council have been very supportive of that effort, and something that we're all working to make progress on. The last thing I'll say is, the last item on the right is talking about customer service, transparency, and community relations. We need to work on that just a little bit. We've been working on that. It's something that I really believe in, making sure that we're not always going to make a decision that everybody in the room is going to agree on. That is impossible, with all respect to everybody in the room. Maybe you all have meetings where nobody has an alternating viewpoint, but I kind of doubt it. And so it's important to me to do our best to meet community expectations, but also to be able to acknowledge and own when we don't, and then explain and say, I understand that you want us to catch every snowflake before it hits the ground so we don't have to plow, but that's not realistic, and here's the reason why. I want to be able to try to have those conversations with folks, and this is a great opportunity to get to come and do some community relations, to talk to people in person, and so thank you again for the opportunity to be here. So areas that improvement, excuse me. Outside of City Hall, I talked about downtown. We need to better define downtown. We need to make sure that we understand what we want that to be, how we want that to operate for people. That's something we're actively working on. We talked about city facilities. We talked about making Golden Valley a destination. And again, I don't look to have a giant tourist attraction here that we suddenly have an amusement park or 50 hotels, but finding reasons and finding ways to bring people here and have them stay here is something that helps the whole community in the long run, and helps community members have places to go, so that you can spend money in our community rather than going to St. Louis Park or to Minnetonka or to Minneapolis. And all those are great places, but we would like to make this a place where you can stay and get your needs met in a way that works for everybody. Again, 8 to 80. Inside City Hall, I will just tell you, this is kind of my personal perspective. I have very high expectations for the work that our staff do. I have high expectations for professionalism and for customer service, and so I have really not had a challenge in having that conversation with our staff, but that's something that is important to me, and that I want to make sure that we continue to prioritize, is doing the very best we can with what we have and expecting the best from each other as we work on that, on projects together. And then when I say places under high expectations, I hope that if you come into City Hall and you haven't been for a little while, you'll see some change. We are working to maximize that building for what we have in terms of the space that we have. And some of it is in internal spaces that the public doesn't always see, but we are working to declutter, to make things look and feel more professional so that our expectations of the space meet the expectations for the people. I frequently, if you're familiar with New York City in the early 90s when Rudy Giuliani became mayor, he talked about the broken windows theory, which was the idea that if you leave a broken window on a building, it encourages other things like that to happen. And so I think this is something that I have had in my head since then, and it's mostly about staff management, which is that I really believe in the broken windows theory of staff management. If you take care of people, you take care of their space, you have high expectations for it, you tell them that they're valuable, people rise to that challenge. And that for me is really how I approach every day at City Hall. Something I'm really excited about is demonstrating to people that we care about them. We want their space to look professional, for them to have what they need to do their job. And people rise to that challenge, and that's something that I've already seen since I've been here, and I'm really excited about. Little things add up to big things. You know, one change in City Hall, a story I've always told about my time in Minneapolis. As a department head, I had a building that was similarly out of date that we were in, and we worked to professionalize that space, to paint it, to clean it up. And I had a couple staff who had jobs where they did not meet the public, but they sat at their desks and they processed rental licenses. So Minneapolis has about half the population lives in rental property. There's about 25,000 licensed rental properties, so the staff were processing renewals every day. And they would wear kind of pajama pants around the office because that was what was most comfortable. But when we did a spring cleaning and we did paint, all of a sudden that ticked up to jeans. And you know, I would maybe go a little further than that personally, but I was happy that we saw that improvement. And with that improvement of feeling cared about, people started to take their jobs a little more seriously and have a little bit more pride in it. And that's something that I think is really important. So when I say little things add up to big things, it's partially that. And it's partially recognizing that making progress on many of the projects that the city has, that 3 small projects really have an impact in the same way that one larger project has. And that is important, so that we don't get caught up in chasing the one big thing, but that we know that low-hanging fruit and getting a bunch of those things and continuing to make progress on them makes as much of a difference as the one big thing. So that's something we're working on as well. And then finally, you know, I forget who I was talking to, so forgive me, but I started in March last year as the interim city manager, following Tim Cruikshank's retirement. Came in to help out, didn't know what that future held, which was okay. And very quickly found that I really liked working for the city and liked the community. And when the opportunity to apply for the position came up, I was very aggressive in doing that, and I'm very proud to have gotten the opportunity to do the job long term. But all the things we've been talking about, there's no scandal in any of them. None of them are a bad thing, but to continue to make progress on them, it just takes time. And so I talk about continuous improvement, and there's a lot of organizational development conversation that uses that terminology. But for me, it is recognizing that almost everything that we do, there's probably a way to do it a little better. Now, is that always affordable? No. Is it always feasible? No. But we have to do the self-examination, criticism to know that, and to make sure that we're understanding, okay, if we wanted to clear the streets faster, could we do it? Yes, we could. What would we need? Well, maybe it's 5 more staff and 5 more plows, and that's a price tag that we're not going to pay right now. And so that's okay, but then we need to be okay with being at the level that we're at. But I wanna always be checking those things. And when we find one that we can make a change that is not exorbitant price or not a humongous impact on community members to do, I'd like to take those opportunities to make that improvement so that you all may not see it day to day, but we feel it internally. And that's something that we just all, that I talk about all the time, that we think about, and I wanna make sure we are paying attention to on an ongoing basis. So that is all that I have prepared. I'm not a verbose public speaker. This is about as long as I speak in public at any moment, and that is mostly I want to go do the job, and I'm not in it for a high profile or for publicity. And I'm happy to leave that to the elected officials. And so if there's something that I missed or something you have a question about or I didn't explain all the way, I'm very happy to answer questions. I don't know exactly what the timeline you all have is, so you stop me. But I wanted to just offer the opportunity. If you have questions, I'm happy to do my best to answer them. Or if you have comments, I'm happy to hear those as well. And I, again, appreciate that you all have a service focus. As a public servant, I really appreciate that. And so thank you for the work you're doing for the community and for having me. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll be sure to let you know when you're done. That's part of my job. But it's really nice to have Representative Freiberg here to talk about local government aid. I'm not sure that I understand a whole lot. Oh, he's gone.
He had to step. He had to step out. He should be back.
Yeah, all right. But could you talk to us a little about local government aid, what that looks like for Golden Valley as compared to St. Louis Park or to Brooklyn Center?
So I can't speak to what those cities receive specifically. I can tell you that in my previous job in Duluth, it was about a third of the city's budget. So my last year there was a $105 million general fund budget. And the nuance of what the budget's made up of is obviously a longer conversation, but it was about 30 million is my memory. And the good news and the bad news are the same thing, which is that Golden Valley is relative to many communities fairly well off. And so that means that we're not getting the same slice of resources that some other communities do. Whether that's right or not is a separate question, and one that I think we should be getting money from either fiscal disparities should be reduced so that we're keeping some of that money, or we should be getting LGA, but it's a decision that we don't get to make. And I don't want to put Representative Freiberg on the spot when he walks back in the room, but we've had that conversation with both Senator Rest and Representative Freiberg. I know Representative Freiberg was on the city council, so I suspect he understands that issue. But we don't get any money from either of those things, and we actually pay in from fiscal disparities, which means that we are helping other communities, which I think is a really good thing. And when we sometimes are lacking for a resource we'd like to have, it sure would be nice to have that money. That's how the system works. And I think our best hope would be to calibrate that a little bit so that we're keeping a little more of that money. And also, there's communities, and again, having worked for one, for two that receive local government aid, recognizing that they need all that money as well. And so I don't know what the right answer is and what the right solution is, but I do think that we really pay close attention to the fact that we don't get those things means that the property taxpayers bear the burden. And so then we're very careful about making sure that we're tracking that and being thoughtful about how we handle property taxes and property tax increases, and recognizing that people feel that.
So we're getting zero local government aid.
That's correct.
Thank you.
And we're actually paying into the fund.
Mhm, yeah.
I have
Go
a
ahead,
question
yes.
for you. I know that there's a renewed organization called Westopolis.
Yes.
I'm saying that right?
Yeah.
And I know that Golden Valley has an employee or a person that is representing Golden Valley in with the St. Louis Park. And it's the two communities that are working on this to build tourism and help promote the communities and that.
Correct.
And so just interested in knowing a little bit about how they're going about that. And I know that St. Louis Park is a little more of a powerhouse in those areas, in that they have
Yeah.
hotels and restaurants and all of those things, but how are we making sure, and what can we do to help Golden Valley get visible?
That's a great question. So, true story, there is, in the city of Duluth, there's a billboard as you drive into downtown for Westopolis.
Oh,
And before that, it was a billboard for Discover St. Louis Park, which was the previous name of Westopolis. The St. Louis Park City Manager is somebody who I've worked closely with for most of my career. She and I worked together in Minneapolis for 15 years. And so when that billboard went up the first time, I sent her a text about it and said, is this just me? Are you just doing this to mess with me that you put this up?
She said yes.
She did. So Westopolis, formerly Discover St. Louis Park, is a tourism marketing organization. The city is not a city department, and the city does not operate it, which you alluded to. My understanding off the top of my head, the funding is about 85% St. Louis Park, 15% Golden Valley, and it comes from lodging taxes at the hotel that we have here versus the hotels that St. Louis Park has. The board seats are made up of representatives from both communities, and Mayor Harmon sits on the board for Golden Valley right now. There may be an opportunity at some point for me to join the board as well, which I would welcome. But the goal of the board and of a tourism destination marketing organization is to tell people that there's things that exist and to try to bring people here. And so they work to help spotlight and highlight events that are happening in both communities. They work to drive business, whether it's convention business or room rental business, to the hotels in both communities, and to spotlight businesses in both communities so that they're bringing people here. And I can't speak for naming Westopolis. That happened before I started, but I know that there was a little bit of confusion about it, and that the Star Tribune had a little fun with us about it. And also, I personally think it's a nice change from Discover St. Louis Park and also Golden Valley to Westopolis as something as a region, and it's a little more equitable in how we get treated as part of that. So that I really appreciate.
But you know the individual who is representing Golden Valley and have worked with her, hopefully, or him, or?
Yes, it's the mayor is the.
Oh, the mayor.
She's representing us right now on the board.
Okay.
So I talk with her regularly about it, and I speak with Becky Bakken, who's the executive director as well. And Becky will be doing an update to the city council on March, I think, 18th, just of Westopolis's kind of year in review and year upcoming. So if you're interested, that would be a good council meeting to attend. All right, I saw a question here, then here,
So
then
about a
here.
year ago, there was
Yes.
some discussion about upgrading city streets, and when doing that, narrowing them to save money on material and snow removal, et cetera. Is that kind of been put off, or is that going forward?
So we just finished last year. They have to do a little cleaning up of the last pieces of the last part of the pavement management plan that was put into place, and I don't know, Mike, if you want to help me here.
Before I was on the
Okay.
council.
So it was
90s, right?
decades of work to do all city streets. And off the top of my head, we're not about to start just narrowing every city street. One of the conversations at the time last spring, when the last project was brought forward, which was Zane and Lindsay streets, was about narrowing those streets because of it reduces our costs in terms of maintenance and creates more public space for residents, and also has been proven to reduce speed on streets. So I can't speak to further than that, but we're not about to go this summer and narrow every city street. But as we look at the future, this is a community that pavement management plan is something that we should all be very proud of. The streets are in impeccable shape, and that's something that our staff spend a lot of time on. But as a community, that is a level of forethought and investment that is really impressive and really sets us up to not have the issues that other communities have. You really notice if you drive across our border into Minneapolis, you can tell the difference. And Minneapolis had to do in the early 2010s had to put a humongous investment in to try to catch up because they're behind schedule. And that is common in especially larger cities with that much roadway, but we are in very good shape and very fortunate, and so I think it's something we should all be very proud of. Okay, Peggy, you were next.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit on your thoughts about what kind of thing you'd like to have come to our downtown area that would really be an attraction, and where would you put it? And secondly,
Yeah.
a few years ago, Golden Valley Country Club had set aside a southern portion of the golf course and tried to have it developed into senior housing. That eventually kind of fell apart, but is that a place that you are looking possibly using or going after to further our housing?
So those are both great questions. I'll take the second one first, if that's all right, which is to say that that land is still owned by the country club. And so I want to be respectful of what choices they're making around it, but we have had conversations with them about, I am up to speed from their perspective on how that development didn't happen. And should they bring something forward, we would be delighted to work with them and help make that happen in whatever way is appropriate, depending on the project. Because I think I've seen that parcel, they've toured me through that parcel, and it would be a great opportunity to add housing if they're still willing and they can find a development partner that they want to move forward with. To your question about downtown, I don't know the answer to that question, and I say that because we don't have any decisions made, and it would be something that community members would have an opportunity to speak to. Late summer last year, we did do some community outreach with a consultant to do a little visioning about what that might feel like and look like. And frankly, the city's main ability to impact that is that we own one of the corners. That City Hall is on the corner of the main intersection in downtown at Golden Valley Road in Winnetka. And so as we talk about city facilities and we talk about what changes we may need to make, both for infrastructure reasons and to try to think about what the future looks like, we are also talking about what that might look like to, if we were going to shift that around, what could go there. If we are able to complete the public works building off-site, which is the plan, then there would be a great deal of space freed up on our block that we own. And so if we can turn that into a public plaza or something that allows for folks to come and spend time with their families, come to an amphitheater, see it, have music going on in that park, that to me is a big part of what a good downtown is public space that is not solely retail or solely housing. And so the short answer is, the short answer is we don't have a decision. I don't know the answer to it, but all the opportunities are in front of us to make that choice in a way that fits this community. And it's not a skyscraper. It's not anything that's going to overwhelm the neighborhoods, but how do we make that work? Sorry.
Are you able to stay for a few minutes for people that have questions?
Sure.
That'd be great.
Thank you very much.